Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Nordenberg. I am one of the co-chairs of this very special event, and it is my privilege to welcome you to the first annual Eradicate Hate Global Summit. I extend those greetings on behalf of my co-chair, Laura Ellsworth, the members of the steering committee, and everyone whose hard work has made this event possible. I also do want to begin by extending thanks to the generous, supportive foundation community here in Pittsburgh, whose financial support has made this gathering possible. And for those of you who have come to us from outside of Pittsburgh, we also want to welcome you to the city that we love. However, on the morning of October 27th, 2018, we received a cruel reminder that horrible things can happen even in very good places. On that day, according to the charges that have been lodged against him, a heavily armed gunman who earlier had posted anti-Semitic and anti-immigrant messages on the internet, entered the Tree of Life synagogue, which was serving as home to 3 congregations, Dor Hadash, New Light, and Tree of Life, just as Saturday Shabbat services were getting underway. Once inside, he murdered 11 worshipers and seriously injured 2. In the process, he terrorized others who were on site and reasonably feared for their own lives. He also wounded several police officers who were a part of a larger group of first responders who saved lives by arriving so quickly that day. The attack commanded worldwide attention, and in the days and weeks that followed, Rabbi Hazan Jeffrey Meyers of the Tree of Life congregation became a very visible and highly respected spokesperson, not only for his congregation, but for the people of our city. Among many honors, he is a 2019 recipient of the Simon Wiesenthal Center Medal of Valor for his service and actions during and after the massacre. As we begin our work this morning, we are very fortunate that Rabbi Meyers is with us to offer the invocation. Rabbi Meyers.
Thank you, Chancellor Nordenberg. Shalom and good morning. My name is Jeffrey Meyers. I am the Rabbi of Tree of Life. Let's face the fact that if the massacre in Tree of Life did not occur, we would not be here. Our challenge these past 3 years has been, simply put, how do we respond to the worst attack upon the Jewish community in the United States ever? And we've been in America since 1652. The portion of the Torah that I would have read that fateful morning is Genesis chapters 18 through 22. Abraham is sitting outside his tent at the terebinths of Mamre when he spies 3 travelers approaching. Without a moment's delay, he rushes out to welcome them, invites them to sit in the shade and refresh. He personally washes their feet and calls upon his wife Sarah to prepare food and drink for these 3 guests. Imagine that, welcoming total strangers into your home. This passage has guided me, so permit me to welcome you, many of you whom are strangers to Pittsburgh. Welcome to our tent. May your time here be meaningful and productive. May you return home refreshed and invigorated for the tasks that lay before you. Unlike COVID-19, which does have inoculations to lessen the impact if one becomes infected, there is no inoculation to eradicate anti-Semitism, although that would certainly be most welcome. Anti-Semitism is not genetic. One is not born an anti-Semite. Your environment trains you to become one, and you make a personal choice to continue on that negative journey. It is, in one sense, the world's oldest disease. Yet the remarkable thing is that there is a cure. You can choose not to go down that path and not become an anti-Semite. Alas, far too many people are choosing the wrong path, with, in our case, deadly results. The Tree of Life, through our Remember, Rebuild, Renew project, stands poised to be a beacon of light and hope, not merely for our congregants, nor Pittsburgh, nor the United States, but the world. We are transforming a site of horror into one of education, building bridges, developing close relationships with our neighbors, combating anti-Semitism, and re-envisioning a place to gather, to experience and to pray. We excitedly await what our architect, Daniel Libeskind, will propose to us. We will reopen, one day soon, for we will not let evil chase us out of our home. If there is one thing that over 3,500 years of anti-Semitism has taught me, is that words matter. But mere words are not enough. There is a vast silent majority out there that stubbornly remains silent. Today, I task each and every one of you, whether you were in person or virtual, not merely to inspire the silent majority to action through your words, but to lead by example. As the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on that sweltering day of August 28, 1963, when he stated the words of the prophet Amos so eloquently, "No, no, we are not satisfied and will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream." This mighty stream must be the raising of the voices of the silent majority to assume their rightful place as the vocal majority, demanding life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all Americans equally. As the psalmist wrote at the conclusion of Psalm 90, "May Adonai, our God, show us compassion and establish the work of our hands. May the work of our hands be firmly established." There is much work to be done. May our efforts bear fruit for the benefit of all. Amen.
I'm going to introduce our next two speakers as a pair because they are partners in leading a very important initiative, and then invite them to the podium to speak sequentially. Kathy Blay is a distinguished professor of sociology at the University of Pittsburgh, where she also serves as the Betty and Ralph Bailey Dean of the Dietrich School of Arts and Sciences, Pitt's largest school. I have firsthand knowledge of the quality of her work because I have presented her with the Chancellor's Distinguished Teaching Award and the Chancellor's Distinguished Research Award, as well as elevating her to the special rank of Distinguished Professor. She is one of the country's most respected experts in the area of hate and also is a member of the Dor Hadash congregation. Laurie Craner is one of Carnegie Mellon's busiest and most distinguished faculty members, and she has the titles to prove it. She is the Bosch Distinguished Professor in Security and Privacy Technologies and the Director of the CyLab Security and Privacy Institute. She also is the FORE Systems Professor of Computer Science and Engineering and Public Policy. As if that is not enough, she also is co-director of the Privacy Engineering Master's Program. You all have heard the adage that if you want to get something done well, ask the busiest people that you know to do it. Earlier this year, Pitt Chancellor Patrick Gallagher and CMU President Farnham Johannian asked Professors Blee and Craner to serve as co-directors of our new joint Collaboratory Against Hate Research and Action Center. Professors Blee and Craner.
Thank you, Mark. I started to study extremist hate nearly 40 years ago by looking at the 1920s Ku Klux Klan. Contrary to other eras of the Klan, the 1920s Klan existed mostly in the North, and it was massive. Over 3 million men and perhaps 500,000 women joined its viciously racist, anti-Semitic, anti-Catholic, and anti-labor crusade. In those areas in which the Klan took deep root, like Indiana, Oregon, and parts of Pennsylvania, a staggering proportion of the eligible population, that is, those who were white, Protestant, and native-born, joined up. In these areas, the Klan posted its events in local newspapers, openly advertising its sporting leagues, lodges, and its community festivals that featured stunt pilots, beautiful baby contests, and Klan cooking classes, along with fiery calls to drive non-Protestants, immigrants, and all those who it deemed non-white out of town, out of the country, and to the bottom of the ocean. This wasn't a Klan of the poor or the hidden. As they like to say in the 1920s, it attracted all the best people. People with financial means, people with clout, people who felt entitled to and could elect Klan-supported mayors and governors. People who felt empowered to march by the thousands down the streets of Washington, D.C. in broad daylight. In the 1980s, when I was writing about the 1920s Klan, it seemed a relic of a kind of extremist hate whose time had passed. Although extremist hate certainly continued in force throughout the 20th century, it was usually covert, denied, tucked away in institutions that perpetuated inequality, and in majority group assumptions about who counts, who's deserving, and who should live without fear. But at least in the United States, it seemed, from the perspective of the 80s, that we wouldn't repeat what happened in the 1920s, that we'd never again find explicitly violent and extremist hate openly embraced by wide swatches of the population or echoed by mainstream leaders, not in this country. Sadly, that hasn't proven to be true. Since the 1990s, and accelerating quickly after the election of President Obama, we've seen an explosion of hate against people of color, Muslims, Jews, immigrants, LGBTQ persons, and many others in marginalized and minoritized communities. This contemporary world of hate has exploited technologies to make the most vile messages and symbols available to anyone who searches for them, as well as to push these messages and symbols into spaces where they catch people, including very young children, unaware and unprepared to evaluate what they see. Hate is no longer mostly hidden in our nation. Much of it is now fully visible, spilling into our political discourse and activating violence and terrorism in community after community, including in Pittsburgh. The situation we face is serious, but this kind of hate isn't inevitable. It's not an outgrowth of human nature, as some would describe it. Extremist hate is cultivated, it is directed, it is financed, and it is protected. In the next few days, we have the opportunity to better understand just how such hate is cultivated and directed and financed and protected, and to better understand what we can do to stop it.
Good morning. I'm honored to welcome you to Pittsburgh on behalf of the Collaboratory Against Hate Research and Action Center, an interdisciplinary anti-hate research center at Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh. Kathy and I have served as co-directors since the launch of the Collaboratory this past March. The Collaboratory Against Hate aspires to develop and support innovative, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and cross-university research aimed at understanding how extremist hate is generated, how it circulates online and in real-life spaces, and how it polarizes society and provokes harmful and illegal acts, especially toward communities of color and other minoritized groups. We seek to develop effective interventions to inhibit every stage in the creation and growth of extremist hate groups and to minimize their destructive consequences. We are humbled by the outpouring of support we have received since launching the Collaboratory, and particularly honored by gifts from New Light Congregation and Congregation Dor Hadash, who draw upon the October 27th tragedy, seeking to prevent future acts of hate. Our core strength is in our ability to collaborate across disciplines and, in the grand Pittsburgh tradition, to partner across institutions, building collaborations among researchers, companies, communities, advocacy organizations, policymakers, and others. When Kathy and I reached out to our local community of researchers, over 300 researchers responded to our call within days and signed up to help. Computer scientists, data scientists, social scientists, psychologists, psychiatrists, lawyers, historians, and many others. We already have partners and collaborating groups across the region and beyond, including those representing communities targeted by extremist hate, the state system of higher education, the Veterans Administration, local universities, and the Rand Corporation. We're hoping that over the next 3 days, we can make connections with other organizations around the globe that will result in fruitful partnerships. We strive for translational research with impact, creating a world where hate cannot thrive. To do that, we need your help. We have 300 ivory tower researchers eager to roll up their sleeves and help solve real-world problems. We welcome your ideas for where research is most urgently needed and your help facilitating access to data sets, platforms, and other resources. We've coalesced around 3 initial working groups, and we will be developing research projects related to understanding and countering hate through computational analysis, educational interventions for youth, and extremism and hate-motivated violence among active-duty military, veterans, and civilians. The Collaboratory wasn't formed until this past spring, when planning for this global summit was already pretty far along. We are thankful to Laura Ellsworth and the steering committee for the opportunity to showcase early work of the Collaboratory at the receptions on Monday and Tuesday afternoon, and to bring our affiliated research into conversations with such a broad and eminent group of researchers, policymakers, and practitioners, you. Please stop by our poster showcase and introduce yourselves to our researchers. I look forward to getting to know you all over the next 3 days and discussing ways we might work together on this important mission. Thank you.
I doubt that there is anyone in this room who is unfamiliar with the name Laura Ellsworth by now. She is the global partner in charge of community service activities for Jones Day, one of the world's largest law firms. She also is the visionary who conceived of this summit and the person who tirelessly deployed all of her energy and talent to make it a reality. Shortly after the attack of October 27, 2018, Laura called and said that we really needed to do something to make certain that Pittsburgh becomes best known for being not for being the site of this attack, but for its effective and constructive responses to the hate that fueled it. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. I should say from the start that I have never seen Laura sweat, but it also is true that I have never seen a person work as hard on any project as Laura has on this one. Without Laura Ellsworth, there would be no Eradicate Hate Global Summit, and it is my privilege to present her to you. Laura?
Thank you all for being here today. I am looking out at a ballroom here filled with people that includes more than 100 speakers who have come here from across the world, across borders, across disciplines, across ideological divides, to come here today for this summit. And we have more than 1,000 people who are watching online, who are joining with us. And we are here in person, socially distanced, at the tail end of a pandemic. Why? Because being here in person matters. Because we are joining together not just our organizations or our institutions, but our minds and our hearts and our experiences. Because we are here not for a conference and not to talk, but to deliver solutions and to deliver results. One of the things you will hear from our panels today, at the end of every panel, is what we call a deliverable, a suggestion for an actual thing that will move the needle in the fight against hate. And at the end of this conference, the members of the Collaboratory and the steering committee are going to come together and select a number of those projects. And for the next year, we're going to form working groups to work on and achieve those solutions. And a year from now, we're going to be on our feet, standing here in front of you, and hopefully in front of more people with the pandemic in the rearview mirror. And we're going to be accountable to you for whether we have kept our commitment. This summit today, and the reason it's so important that all of you are here, is because this is the first page in a new chapter in the fight against hate. When people come together across all different disciplines, people who don't agree with one another, but are here to search for what they can agree on, not to focus on their differences, but to focus on what they can and will do together to make sure that we can save every family from the kind of pain and hurt that this city experienced, and that so many of our speakers, as you will hear, have experienced in their own lives. We are so grateful to all of you for being here. And we are really engaged together in a sacred mission. There are so many people that we see now in our daily lives who disagree on one issue and write off people on every issue. And that type of civic discourse has to stop. And in this room, with these global experts who have come together across the miles to work together in a concerted fight against hate, it will stop. And in this room, we will focus not on our differences, but on where we can and will come together to find solutions that will move the needle in the enduring fight against hate in all of its forms. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this mission. And I will close with the words of anthropologist Margaret Mead, who you have heard me mention before, many of you, who said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." So thank you, those of you who are here today, those of you who have taken the time to join us virtually. Thank you for being our small group of committed people who can and will change this world. Thank you.
It is said that out of darkness comes light. As already has been noted, October 27th, 2018 was a very dark day here in Pittsburgh. For me, the most powerful beacon of light to emerge was grounded in extraordinary human goodness, and it came from the family of Cecil and David Rosenthal, whose lives were taken that day. Just 2 months after their murder, on the final Sunday of the year, the Rosenthal family took a full page in the front section of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. At the top of that page was a portrait of Cecil and David. Just beneath the portrait in extra large print was the simple message, "We are thankful for your support." The text continued by saying, "The entire Rosenthal family wishes to extend our sincerest thanks and gratitude to the Pittsburgh community and those around the world for your outpouring of support and kindness. Your thoughts, prayers, and kind gestures have given us the strength to get through this difficult time. Our Cecil and David were proud to call Pittsburgh home. It is our hope that their legacy of love, kindness, and acceptance will continue on in how we live our daily lives. We wish you all a new year filled with peace, health, and happiness." Their message was followed by a Stronger Than Hate logo and concluded with an invitation to others to engage in acts of kindness in memory of Cecil and David. I visibly display a copy of this message in my office because I think it is so remarkable, and I ran off some copies that I'll find a place to deposit so others of you, particularly those not from Pittsburgh, can see it. My basic question then and now is, who has so much goodness in their hearts that they can craft such a remarkably gracious and uplifting message after having been so cruelly wronged. The obvious answer is Pittsburgh's Rosenthal family, and Michele Rosenthal, a sister to Cecil and David, a member of our steering committee, and a good friend to many of us, is here to share some of her thoughts today. Michele?
Thank you, Mark. Good morning. I don't know if I should be speaking here today. I don't have an education background on understanding hate. I don't have great speaking skills. I don't have many of the things all of you may have. And perhaps this, what I don't have, is precisely why I've been asked to stand before you today. I don't have my brothers, Cecil and David, anymore because of what occurred on October 27th, 2018. But ironically, even though we don't have them here any longer, I wholeheartedly believe they still offer us something we can have. October 27th, 2018 was like any other fall Saturday afternoon. My husband and I were planning our errands for the day. He had once held the position of public safety director for the city of Pittsburgh and was always in control and calm when it came to a crisis or emergency. So when I came downstairs that morning and he remarked that something must be wrong because of all of the sirens in the neighborhood, my curiosity piqued a bit, but I knew we were safe because we lived in the quiet neighborhood of Squirrel Hill in the city of Champions, Pittsburgh. We got in the car, and my husband's phone notified him of a text. My family's life would forever change at this moment. The text read, "Active shooter at Tree of Life Synagogue." I screamed, "The boys are there." The boys, my brothers, Cecil and David Rosenthal, both older than me, with my sister Diane in between them. They both had Fragile X, a genetic condition that causes intellectual disability, behavioral, and learning challenges. But that condition did not define them. I knew they were different. My whole family knew. But my amazing parents and their wisdom and love ensured that the boys were part of our family and they would be treated equally. What I failed to realize is that they were not equal, but far better than most in our world. They flawlessly exhibited characteristics that most never achieve in a lifetime: inquisitive, helpful, trusting, sensitive, thankful, loving, and compassionate. This room is filled with experts in their fields who study hate. When does it begin? Why does it exist? How does it spread so quickly? How do we fight it within our legal system? Cecil and David did not know hate until the last minutes of their lives. They lived in a community where people knew them and embraced them. A ride home from the bus stop, having the honorary title of the mayor of Squirrel Hill, checking in at the local flower shop to buy our mom flowers, being treated like a member of the Pittsburgh Fire Department, and sharing a cup of tea with a custodian at Tree of Life Synagogue before services. What I learned in the days, weeks, months, and years to follow is that my older brothers, who I constantly tried to protect from the bad in this world, little did I realize it was this cruel world that needed them. They did not judge anyone, not religion, color, or ethnicity. They saw the world simply. Don't we all wish the world was a little more simple? We study this topic of hate so much, but the truth is maybe we should just look to the boys, Cecil and David, and how they lived their lives. I'm sure some people in this world looked at Cecil and David and only saw their disability, and they probably called them simple. Well, perhaps simple is the answer for all of us. Cecil and David, good men who lived good lives. They are my example, and they should be your examples too. They demonstrated the hearts and actions we want the world to show towards each other. Simple lessons, simple truths, simple love. Simply, let's all love like the boys.
Thank you, Michele. Michele's appearance serves as a reminder that while our entire community and the concept of civilized society were wounded on October 27th, 2018, there are those who suffered far more direct and very serious losses. As we move forward, we want to respectfully acknowledge the families of those who were killed, as well as those who were wounded. We cannot undo the horrible harms that were visited upon you. However, we can work to curtail any such future losses, and that is the goal of this summit. Thank you all again for being here, and we'll move to the next session.